Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a really fun project to share. I'm going to show you how to make these fun paint pour pumpkins for fall. This is a super cute fall Cricut project idea and I'm excited to show you how to make your own. For this project you'll need a pumpkin. If you just want to do the paint pour without the vinyl quote, you can use a real pumpkin or a craft pumpkin. But if you're going to add the vinyl quote at the end, you need to use a craft pumpkin. And that's because the transfer tape will peel the paint off of a real pumpkin, so that one won't work with the vinyl. You'll also need acrylic paint, pouring medium, cups and stir sticks, gloves, a disposable pan or box, painter's tape, adhesive vinyl, transfer tape, and make sure you're not using strong grip transfer tape. You'll also need a weeding tool and scraper, your Cricut, a cutting mat, and the cut file. So grab your supplies and head over to your computer. The first thing we need to do is grab the SVG file we'll be using for this project. You can get it for free on my blog at burtonavenue.com. I keep all the SVG files for the projects that I make and share in my free SVG library. These files will work with all kinds of machines and they're free to everyone. Once you're on my site, just click on Free SVG Files and then Free SVG Library. You will need a password to get into the library and there are instructions on the screen if you need to get one. Once you're in the library, you can search for the file Hello Fall. It will either be listed under the most recent projects and cut files or under the Fall category. You can also use your browser search to find it. I've added the unique code BA1667 after the file name to make finding this design a little bit easier. So once you found the file, go ahead and click on that link and the files will be downloaded onto your computer. Now when you download these files online, they come in a zipped folder and you'll need to unzip or extract them before you can use them in Cricut Design Space. To do this, you'll want to go to the location where downloaded files are saved onto your computer. And for me, that's on my desktop. So once you're there, look for that zipped folder that we just downloaded and double click on it. A new window will open and somewhere you should see the option to extract or unzip. Click on that and another window will open up. And this will just show you where on your computer the unzipped files will be saved. And you need to remember this location because you'll have to get to it once you're in Cricut Design Space. So now you can click on that Extract button. And the files will be unzipped and they're now ready to use in Design Space. So let's head over to Cricut Design Space and start a new project. Once you're on the canvas screen, you can click on the Upload button, and then click Upload Image, and then click on Browse. And now you'll want to go to that location where the unzipped files were saved onto your computer. Once you're inside of that zipped folder, you'll see several different file types listed, and we need to use an SVG file for this project. But you'll notice in this list, there's not an SVG file. And that's because on my computer, SVG files show up as a Microsoft Edge HTML document. And on other computers, they might show up as a Chrome HTML document. So if you don't see SVG in this list of files, be sure to look for one of those instead. So select the SVG file and then click Open. Make sure it's the design you want to work with and then click Upload. Select that design one more time and then click Insert Images. And now the design will appear on your canvas screen. So now we just need to resize the design so that it will fit on the front of the pumpkin. And the size is going to be different for everyone depending on how big or small your pumpkin is. So you'll just need to measure the front of your pumpkin and decide what size you want to make your design. And I'm going to make my design about 4.5 inches wide, and I'll leave the lock closed so the height adjusts proportionally. So now the design is resized so that it will fit on the pumpkin. the last thing we need to do is right-click and choose Attach. And that will just lock the design into place the same way that we see it on our screen. So now we can click on the green Make It button, and then you'll be taken to this screen. And this will just show you what your design is going to look like on the cutting mat. If everything looks okay, you can click on the green Continue button. Once Cricut Design Space finds your machine, you'll be taken to this screen. Make sure that your dial is set to vinyl, and then you can go load your mat. So place a piece of vinyl on your cutting mat and smooth it out so there aren't any wrinkles or bubbles. Then load it into your Cricut by pressing the up and down arrow button. When your Cricut is ready to cut, you'll see the C button light up. Press that and the machine will begin cutting. When everything has been cut, you can press the up and down arrow button again to unload your mat. Remove the vinyl from your cutting mat and trim away any unused portion of the vinyl. Then weed away the excess vinyl from around your design. Use a weeding tool to pull out the tiny pieces left inside of the letters and the leaves. Next, grab a piece of transfer tape and place it sticky side up on your work surface. Then place the piece of vinyl on top of that and smooth it down. Grab your scraper and rub firmly over the vinyl to help it stick to the transfer tape. Then trim off the excess transfer tape and vinyl backing. Now that our vinyl is ready to go, let's go work on our pumpkins. First, you'll want to add some push pins or nails on the bottom of the pumpkin to raise it up off your work surface. You can also cover the stem with some painter's tape if you don't want that to get painted. Next, grab your acrylic paint. It's up to you which colors you use, but since this is a fall pumpkin, I chose some fall colors. I used red, orange, brown, and goldenrod for this pumpkin. I also added some turquoise into one of the other pumpkins I did, and loved how it turned out. Pour some paint in a cup. The amount you use is really going to depend on the size of your pumpkin. I'm using a pumpkin that's about 6 inches tall and 7 inches around, and I used about 1.5 ounces of each color of paint. After you've added the paint to the cup, you need to add some pouring medium. The mixture should be equal parts, so half paint, half pouring medium. Use a stick to stir everything together. Next, grab a bigger cup and start pouring the paint mixtures into it. I added about half of each color, one at a time, and then I went back and added even more of each color. You can add the colors in any order you want. It really doesn't matter. Now that the paint is ready to go, it's time for the fun part. Place your pumpkin in a box or disposable pan and put on some gloves. This part can get really messy. Take the cup of paint and start pouring it over the top of the pumpkin. Some of the paint will probably drip to the middle towards the stem, and some will drip down the side of the pumpkin. Pour the paint around the pumpkin. The bumps of the pumpkin make it a little bit tricky for the paint to coat the whole pumpkin, so I started moving the cup down the pumpkin as I poured the paint around it. After you've got a good coat of paint dripping down your pumpkin, let it sit for a few minutes. If you see parts that you don't like or you just want to add more color, you can go back over those sections with more paint. You can also pick up the pumpkin and tip it to the side to help the paint run over those sections. I also used my finger to drag paint down onto any small areas that were left uncovered. When you're happy with the look, you can let the pumpkin sit overnight. It might be tempting to touch it, but try not to. There's a lot of paint on the pumpkin, and if you touch it too soon, you could mess it up. After the paint has dried, you can pick up the pumpkin and wipe off any excess paint that's on the bottom. Then flip it over and pull out your pins. If you want, you can use some of the leftover paint to even out the bottom. Once the paint has totally dried, you can apply your vinyl decal. First, find the side of the pumpkin you like the most. That's where you'll want to put the decal. Since the surface of the pumpkin is curved, It will make the vinyl a lot easier to apply if you trim off as much of the excess vinyl backing and transfer tape as possible. Then cut several slits between the letters and the leaves. Now you can pull off the vinyl backing. Position the design over the pumpkin. Do your best to make sure it's straight and centered. When you're happy with the placement, push the vinyl onto the pumpkin, starting in the middle of the design and working your way outward. Just a warning, once the vinyl has touched the painted surface, you won't be able to get it off without messing up the paint, so be very careful as you apply the vinyl. Rub over the entire decal to make sure it's pressed into place. I thought it was easiest to do this with my hands instead of using a scraper. Now, carefully pull off the transfer tape. I was a little worried the transfer tape would pull the paint off the pumpkin, but it didn't. I tried it with a smooth craft pumpkin and also a styrofoam pumpkin from Dollar Tree, and both were fine. Just make sure you don't use the strong grip transfer tape. The last thing you need to do is remove the tape from the stem. If you notice it's not coming off easily, you can use a craft knife to slice the paint around the stem. Then you should be able to pull the tape off. And that's it, your project is finished. Now you just need to find a place to display your new fall pumpkin. If you enjoyed this project and want to see more like it, be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell so you'll get notified each time I post a new video.